Welcome to AFO Wealth Management Forward, a podcast powered by Arrowroot Family Office that's at the intersection of accounting, wealth management, behavioral finance, technology, and entrepreneurship. We help accounting firms and financial advisors grow their practice by going beyond the numbers as we learn from industry leaders and subject matter experts to discover the secret to their success. A podcast that highlights everything from the transformative power of AI to embracing the human-first approach of behavioral finance to help you understand the psychological and emotional relationships to money and meaning. Here is your host, Rory Henry, Director at Arrowroot Family Office and author of Holistic Guide to Wealth Management.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be joined by my next guest. He is the president and CEO of Whitman Advisory, which is the largest advisory organization for CPAs, where they help firms with succession planning, M&A, talent, and profitability. He's not only an M&A advisor, but also a private equity advisor, and helps firms with operational improvement. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Phil Whitman. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Rory. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes, pleasure to speak with you. We always have a good time speaking. I know you have a rebrand that just occurred here. Do you want to share with our audience about the transition from Whitman Transition Advisors to Whitman Advisors?
Sure. And thank you, Rory. So, when we first started, we were Whitman Business Advisors, and we grew. First 6 years, it was just me and a stay-at-home mom, and then I brought on a partner, and he's really been instrumental in helping me grow. Sort of, I'm the outside guy. Love business development, love opening doors, closing transactions, and he helps with structure and strategy and all that. In 2022, we merged in our largest competitor, Transition Advisors. And at that point in time, it was very easy to go from Whitman Business Advisors, well, kick business out, put transition in. Yeah. Let's pay homage to their 20 plus year history of being one of the top, M&A advisory firms for CPA firms. So we became Whitman Transition Advisors. And when the pandemic started, we figured we were sitting on some tremendous relationships with CPA firms. And we said, you know what, we can do a lot more than help the CPA firms. We could help them help their clients. Yeah. So we started building other businesses, and we built it under the C-Suite Impact brand. So we built a fractional CFO business, and not to compete with CPA firms, but for in the case where, independence was impaired, and they didn't want to go to another CPA firm. Well, we don't do audit, we don't do tax. We're not going to steal any of that work from them. So we built a fractional CFO business. We built a funding solutions business. We had a business where we would do buy side, sell side, and capital raising, and all with the eye towards generating additional bottom line revenue for those CPA firms. Well, we've been in it with C-Suite now for 5 years. And one of the things that we found is it's real challenging to manage multiple brands. And we had marketing folks, talking about, our 5 recruiting companies and our 3 offshoring companies. And, we just decided, the best known, brand that we have, and the relationships that we fostered are with Whitman. So we said, let's change the name. And, there were a couple of different things we thought about, but ultimately we said, let's keep it simple, Whitman Advisory. We collapsed everything under our brand, so I can now say, we're 52 people strong. We are helping CPA firms in so many ways. Everything from we've now got Whitman Funding Solutions. We'll help firms get lines of credit. We'll help them refinance their debt. Acquisition lines. We've got 3 offshoring companies. One in the Philippines, which I'm really proud of. We power 5 top 100 CPA firms, and 2 of them actually offered to buy the company from us.
Yeah,
I just kicked a wire and
you did.
I almost did a Houdini act there.
You're back.
Yes.
Well, speaking of Houdiniacs, private equity appeared on the scene, a couple of years ago, and has caused a seismic shift in the profession. Phil, let's dig into that because I know our audience is probably going to want to hear and get the latest snapshot as we're wrapping up 2025 and heading into 2026. Can you kind of give us the lay of the land in the world of
Yes,
private equity accounting?
absolutely. And this is on the heels of last week.
Weeks, yeah,
We had the PE summit
yeah,
in Chicago. And what I can tell you is I think seismic shift, the way you described it, is very accurate. In 2021, as most people know, EisnerAmper was the first to take an investment by private equity. And then that was followed by Citrin and then
mhm,
Cherry Bekaert. And we very early on did a transaction with EisnerAmper. We merged in a small, $6 million New York City-based practice, very high-end practice.
yeah,
And like most firms, their challenge was they couldn't get enough people. They had so many
mm,
opportunities, but they couldn't expand the firm because of the talent gaps.
yeah,
So they did a transaction. They had an opportunity to do a transaction with a top 100 firm that wasn't PE backed. And ultimately, in the long run, the money probably would have been more, but he wouldn't start receiving the money until he was 7 years into the
mm.
transaction, and then he would get paid out over 10 or 15 years. Whereas his wife said to him, go for the gusto, take the
Yeah,
money. I mean, yeah, imagine this: you got a $6 million practice,
yeah,
and you close a transaction, and you're sitting on
$5
$5 million.
million.
Really unlocking the value. After I did that deal, I studied the deal documents, the way
Mhm.
that Eisner was doing their transactions. And I worked with Citrin, and it was very similar, just changed a couple of names, like what is the
Yeah,
rollover equity called? Is it
yeah,
units or is it PPCs or whatever they were calling it, PPUs, preferred
yeah.
participation units. But in any event, it was very, very similar the way they were doing transactions. And I said to myself, this can't only be for the largest of firms.
Right.
And look, fast forward, here we are today. There are private equity groups. I met with someone and I actually saw them. They came to the conference. If there's a CPA firm out there, he said to me, we'll take firms 500,000 to
Oh, wow.
2 million. And I said, of EBITDA? And he said, no, of gross
Revenue.
revenues, gross
Wow.
revenues. So imagine this. I think, for the sole owner of a practice where he's doing 500,000 in revenue, probably making 50, 60, 70% of that because it has low cost, low overhead.
Yeah.
There are folks out there that'll put cash
They'll
on
buy
the
that.
table to buy those practices. The smallest deal we've done, it was like a $1.8 million firm, and it wasn't a tuck-in.
Yeah.
Private equity left it as a standalone firm. The initial transaction value was like 2.5 million.
Hmm.
They've got rollover equity. So ultimately, when the PE group transacts, that'll lock, another, I forget if they did, 20, 30, or 40% rollover equity. But the proverbial second bite of the apple
Apple.
is going to create significant wealth, even for a small firm like that, whose mindset was, well, if I could get 1 times gross revenue, that would be great. And 4 years ago, if you got 1 times gross revenue, that was par for the
All
course.
for the course.
Yeah,
Well, let's break down what the current figures are looking like with EBITDA, right? Because
yeah.
I've seen numbers out there that 3.5 to 5 times EBITDA now. Sometimes 4 to 8. I mean, is it even any higher than that, Phil?
So I think at this very moment, here we are the day before Thanksgiving
Yeah.
2025. I think here's what we saw. What used to be 3 to 5 became 4 to 7. Okay. And
Hmm.
that's for firms that I would say sub 10 million,
Yeah.
and with less than 2 million of leave behind EBITDA. I'll share a wonderful story. And this is sort of an outlier because I don't know how many listeners, there aren't a lot of $35 million firms out there.
Yeah.
The $35 million firm ended up with $100 million initial total enterprise value, almost 3 times gross revenue. And
Wow.
that wasn't the largest offer. There was a bidding war. There was another group that came in and offered them 110 million. But for whatever reason, they decided they liked the back
Cultural
office
fit, yeah.
operations and the culture of the one that offered them 100 million. That multiple at the time, I had a conversation with my good friend Alan Colton, and Alan Colton said, Phil, there hasn't been a higher multiple than that. They had 7 million of leave behind EBITDA. 7 million of leave behind EBITDA. So you look at that, and that's almost a 15 multiple. It was like 14.6 multiple. And this was a transaction that closed about a year ago. So let's come down a little bit because that's almost 3 times gross revenue. I can also share a $6.3 million firm. And this one really blew my mind. Love the managing partner of this firm. Built a great business. 67 years old. And he has one other partner, a 63-year-old. No future partners in the ranks.
Right.
Okay, so no bench strength. All right, 19 loyal soldiers that were getting up there in age, but none of them future partners. Few of them CPAs, but good folks that could grind out the work and deal with clients. Here's how that story ended up. 6.3 million of gross revenue. Okay. They got 7 million at closing. They got a $5 million promissory note paid over 5 years. So we're up to 12 million now. They got a $3 million earnout, which is going to be very easy for them to achieve. So we're up to 15 million. And then the PE group, just to be nice guys, said, instead of paying you and your partner 1.1 million a year for the next 5 years, we're only going to pay you 600,000 a year. And one might say, what? You're going to pay me less? They took 500,000 times 5 years, another 2.5 million. They put it in total enterprise value. So now that's 17.5 million for a $6.3 million firm. And they made it, instead of compensation, the firm partners ended up getting capital gains treatment because it was part of total enterprise value.
Yeah.
Increased our fee a little bit as well, which wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But in any event, imagine that, a 6.3 million, now a very profitable firm.
Right.
Now they were putting like 50% to the bottom line. So, to achieve that sort of multiple, almost 3 times gross revenues.
Yeah.
And I would say it was probably, if you added everything up, with 2 million of leave behind EBITDA to get 17 point, even if you took 17.5 million out and said, okay, it was a $15 million deal, that's a 7.5 multiple. For a firm with no bench strength, no future partner, great clients, so it's amazing. Now, I think what we're seeing right now is a little bit of a lull. Like we have transactions that have just closed that we've closed at a multiple of 7.5. I believe if we took them to market now, we would probably get an 8, an 8.5, a 9. But we have been seeing a little bit, like I know of a transaction, I was on a call this morning where it's 2 million of leave behind EBITDA. Got the CPA firm owner said, what do you think in terms of multiple? And before I could say 8, he said, we're offering them an 8. So I think multiples are sort of leveling off. I think if you've got more than 2 million of leave behind EBITDA, you could be expecting multiples of 9, 10, 11, 12. I think the highest we've seen so far is a multiple of 16. Now, that being said, one of the PE groups that we work with took on additional investors. It wasn't a turn, it wasn't a flip, it wasn't a second bite of the apple, but those investors came in at 17 times earnings.
Wow.
Which is kind of amazing. So how high does this go?
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
But it's almost like there's a feeding frenzy going on. People
It's very much FOMO, right?
yeah, fear of missing out, and how long is this going to continue? I mean, the thing that I tell people, it's not even a full year since Blackstone transacted with Mountain and took over, Citrin. So we know they'll be in for at least 3 to 5. And we have new PE groups coming to town every single day. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about those new groups because, I know when I spoke with Alan Colton, he talked about sovereign wealth funds. I know there's family offices in the space with patient capital. Can you kind of talk about some of the other strategies coming into the space, Phil?
Yeah. So it's not only, and I use private equity as a generic. You're right. It's family offices, it's wealth management groups. We have a number of wealth management groups that are buying tax-only practices. Obviously they're buying the tax portion. They don't want to have anything to do with the audit.
Exactly.
You have firms,
yeah.
And for the most part, when all of this started, the message that everyone was receiving was, we want little audit, we want little audit. And for the most part, that's true. But there are groups that love audit if you're doing it well and it's profitable because it's recurring. And there are PE groups that are buying audit practices. But there's family offices, there's venture funds that have now gotten, venture-backed folks that are out there. And the family offices and even the venture are a little bit more patient capital. There's so much flexibility, even with some of the PE-backed, groups that we're working with. There are sovereign wealth funds, there are pension funds, foreign pension funds. Let's not forget publicly traded companies. I was on a call this morning. I'll give a shout out to James Jordan's corporate development at CBIZ. CBIZ is a publicly traded company. Most recently, everyone thinks about the Markham transaction that they did. But CBIZ is, absolutely, I call it, it's like Baskin Robbins, his 31
flavors.
And there truly are. And Rory, I'll send you, I have a PDF, a one-pager of here's the 31 flavors. And here's why you need to talk to an advisor before you figure out which scoop
which flavor.
Because even if you pick the same flavor, there are so many nuances. I mean, everyone says to me, what's the multiple?
You want 2 scoops, you want 1 scoop, right?
Yes, that's right. And what do you want on top?
What do you want on top? What
marshmallow, butterscotch, hot chocolate, or strawberry?
You're making me hungry, Phil.
Yeah, I know. Wet nuts, walnuts, whipped cream. I mean, there's so much. But in any event, there's groups out there now that are tremendously flexible. So what does that mean? Do you want rollover equity? And rollover equity, by the way, they buy 60% of your firm. You got 40% that you're going to hang on to. Is that at your local level where performance only depends on how your firm does? Or do you want it at the top co at the same level that the private equity and other firms are sitting at? And some people like it at top co, others like it at the local level. And there are groups out there that if you and I were partners, Rory, you could take it at the local level and I could take it at top co. And you know what? If you want more cash up front and less rollover equity, you could take more cash, less rollover equity. I could take more rollover equity, less cash. The flexibility, and it's almost, and I'm not talking about the big, the Cherry Bekaerts, the Eisners, and the Citrins. Obviously, they have their way of doing a transaction. But for the smaller firm, you have so many choices because you could go into one of those big ones and you're done. You don't have to worry about HR, IT, finance, facilities, marketing, business development, all that. They're going to take care of that for you. Or you could be a foundational firm that's part of one of these constellation
Yeah.
models where they're putting flags in different geographies across the country. You could keep your name. You could keep your brand. You could keep your culture. You could remain the leader of that firm. Is that what you want? Now, they will build the entire back office,
Yeah.
HR, IT, finance, facilities, marketing. They'll be helping you with all of that stuff. They're going to unlock additional time so that you could do what a partner should be doing. And that's going out there and developing business, going out there providing additional services to your existing clients. Because the one thing I know, the more services you provide to a client, the stickier they're going to be.
Yeah.
Very frequently, there are these companies that come in and they do, net promoter scores, and that's
Yeah.
great to do that. But some of them, what they do while they're doing it, they're unlocking opportunities because you have clients that don't know that you have the ability
Estate planning,
business
right?
valuation, estate
Yeah.
planning, fraud, forensic, all that stuff, because they only know you as their tax guy. And
Right.
and most CPAs, unfortunately, they do this around their client because Rory, I don't know, I don't know, and I don't know the first thing about, valuations, and
Right.
how do I know you're not going to screw it up, and that's going to taint my relationship with this great client. And that's just, you and I talked earlier about
Scarcity thinking. Yeah.
mindset. You
Yeah.
know, I think everyone needs to be open-minded
Yeah.
and explore. There's no
Opportunities.
there's no commitment, but you need to be educated so that when somebody calls you, you don't listen to that first call and say, "Wow, this sounds great," and you jump on the bandwagon, because there are 31 flavors. I mean, I could
Yeah.
point to firms out there that did exactly what I said. And then I have a conversation with them, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't even realize that." You know, the abundance of opportunities. So,
Yeah. And that's
and you
just
don't need to rush into it.
right.
I'm not like a hammer and nail. Let's get this thing closed. Let's get this thing.
No.
Usually, I'm going to show people 4, 5, 6, 7 different opportunities.
Yeah.
They're all going to be slightly different from one another. And it comes back to the good old number one, chemistry, number two, culture. The
Yeah.
money's going to be the money. You don't want to sell your soul for
Yeah.
more money and then in the last 5 years of your career be
Be
miserable.
miserable. Yeah. And I mean, I think we're cut from the same cloth, Phil, in doing a more consultative approach and really understanding, the firm's wants, desires, their culture, and then, hopefully guiding them in a way that improves not only, the bottom line, but more importantly, well-being. It's always talk about the return on relationship, right? Like we measure everything quantitatively many times with that bottom line, or those multiples, right? But there's other aspects of well-being that we need to take into account when in any business relationship or in relationship in general.
100%. And while I can talk a good clip, as everyone can see, I always remember we have 2 ears and one
One
mouth.
mouth.
And when it comes to our clients, the one thing we're amazing at, we listen.
Yeah.
We listen to what your goals are, and that's why, we don't have our tagline, new tagline up there, but it's your goals, our impact.
Uh,
So we listen to our clients. I think the reality is we are in the business of changing lives.
yeah.
I think everybody comes out better for it. And in most circumstances, weren't aware that such opportunities ever existed for them.
Yeah. I talk about, just in general, going from a transaction mindset to that transformational mindset. And, and really understanding the human behind the numbers. You were in the book, Phil. I'm sure you read the book where I talk about really understanding the wants, needs, goals, fears,
Yes.
aspirations of our clients, and that applies to CPA firm owners and their transactions and how they want to build their firm. It's really understanding that human and helping them get to where they want to go in life.
And that's really what's key. You're absolutely right. It's not about the transaction.
Yeah.
I can point to so many folks that I've worked with, and the one thing I tell everyone up front, we may not transact,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And I'm not going to get mad. I'm here as your Sherpa. I want to
Yeah.
take you up the mountain. And you know what? If you want to stop at base camp and
Yeah.
you don't feel that it's appropriate for you to go to the peak, then you know what? We're going to camp out and we're going to have a great time in base camp.
Yeah.
And you know what? If we never transact, that's okay because life is long. And I truly believe as long as you treat people well, and you don't be a hammer. You don't be a hammer and nail. The
Yeah.
solution to everything isn't, you got to do this deal. We help
Yeah.
firms remain independent. I mean, the week before the PE summit, I was
Yeah.
in Miami at a BDO Southeast Regional Conference, and I did a very brief talk, 15 tips on remaining independent. And you know what? If that's what your
Yeah.
journey is, and that's what your goal is, we help so many firms that way as well.
So what are the top five, Phil, to remain independent? Can you give, I know I put you on the spot here. Do you have a top five for us?
A top five? Top
Yeah, to
five
remain independent. Yeah.
firms?
No,
Oh,
top
top
five
top
keys to
five
remain
tips?
independent. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I can tell you is now I got to switch to the other side of my brain.
Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. So number one, you need to have a plan,
Yeah.
okay? And it's all about partner alignment. I talk about four things: excellent communication,
Mm.
trust, alignment of partner goals, and accountability. And it takes those four things to build a world-class firm. If you don't communicate really,
Right.
really well with your partners and with your groups, with one another, there typically is an erosion of trust. Trust needs to be really high.
Yeah.
And alignment, I frequently walk into a room and you know what? A bunch of old guys, they want to merge up. A bunch of young guys, they want to stay independent.
Yeah.
Everyone has their different goals. You need to be fiduciaries of the firm. Firm
Yeah.
first. Now, I always say family first, and that comes to health and all those other things. But when it comes to, is this good because I'm going to gain personally? That should come second to what's the best thing for the firm. And I frequently walk into a room, and I think it was Kaner who wrote the book on facilitation,
Hmm.
Sam Kaner. I walk into a room, and if each of my fingers was a ray of light,
Yeah.
okay, we're all going in disparate, different directions. We come in and we speak with the firms, and that's this part right here. And when we're done and we walk out, now it looks like the other way, again, rays of light,
Hmm.
all coming to a common goal or what we call alignment. So you want to go from this, and I
Yes.
know, obviously, for those that are listening, I'm holding up
Yeah.
my left
Hand. Yeah.
hand and I'm taking a ray and putting it through each finger, and it's Star Wars like, and it's going in all different directions. And now I'm putting up my right hand right next to it, and obviously it's the inverse of that, and all those points of light that we shoot through my fingers are
Yeah.
coming into my wrist, and we're going in the same direction, and that's what we call alignment. So again, excellent communications, and I think you know, especially in this environment with private equity with very deep pockets,
Yeah.
one of those top five things is also you need to go out and you need to get an acquisition line of credit
Mm.
because every deal you do from now on, and you can't just grow organically, you have to have a combined inorganic growth. And that could just be bringing in lateral partners with books of
Yeah.
business. That's what Eisner did 36 of them Charlie did before he ever did a merger deal. And the merger deal with Amper was pretty much their first merger transaction. So, but I do think you need a capital stack. Go
Yeah.
out, increase your line of credit if you have one, because deals are going to require cash down.
Yeah. Well, speaking of deals, I know we're running out of time here. 2025 record number of deals again. What are we looking at as far as PE deals? And then can you give us some outlook into 2026, Phil?
Yeah. So to date this year, we've closed 26 transactions now, and 4 of them were traditional CPA firm to CPA firm.
Mm-hmm.
The other 22 were different flavors. It was with 12 different strategic investors. It wasn't all going to one. There does happen to be, one group that a lot of this was stuff that leaked over, should have closed in 2024, but closed in 2025. So, one group we probably did 6 deals with, but everyone else, 2 deals here, 2 deals, very, very spread out amongst our group of client private equity and other investor clients. To date, I've met with 230 strategic investors that are interested in the public accounting arena. We work with about 40 of them. And of those 40, I'm going to say right now, probably 22 of them have not yet transacted with their first CPA firm. They're aspirational. We've got about 18 that we've closed deals with. So
I love it. I love it. All right.
I think for 26, just real quickly, more of the same.
Yeah.
Although 26, rather than seeing a lot of larger firms, at least in our client base, it's not going to be the $35 million firms or $25 million firms. It's going to be the year of the tuck-in. It's going to be firms, I'm going to say 2 to 10, 2 to 15 million. And all these platforms that have now established in 20 or 30 different locations, they're going to be looking to add bulk, girth, and additional depth and breadth. So that's my prediction.
Great. All right. I love it. Awesome, Phil. Thank you so much for coming on. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, I call my cell phone, 212-983-0035. Shoot me an email. You can also text at that number, obviously, but my email, PW, my first and last name initials, at whitmanadvisory.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Phil.
Thank you so much, Rory. Been an absolute pleasure.
Sounds good. Have you on again in the future. Thanks.
Opinions expressed by Rory Henry on this website podcast interview are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Arrowroot Family Office LLC or their parent company or affiliates, and may have been previously disseminated on television, radio, internet, or another medium. You should not treat any opinion expressed by anyone as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy, but only as an expression of their opinions. Past performance is not indicative of future results.